that's about it. I can't afford to go to a hospital and have a child.
We can't even afford to go to the hospital in general.
I can't afford housing in this state, in this country. I can't.
Yeah, I can't even afford to go to the doctor in general. If I get actually sick, like I'm. People that make $100,000 a year, you get cancer, you're bankrupt.
Where do you work?
Right now, I just got back from Europe doing a study abroad, so this is my first day back, so I don't have a job right now. I study human rights, actually.
Okay, cool.
I study human rights and international studies.
And where were you studying then?
Barcelona.
Like a university?
Yeah, IAU is the university. It's my final semester, so I was just finishing. I've already finished my degree. I was just doing like my electives, basically, and traveling. But yeah, I study human rights at SMU, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you said you can't afford a house.
No, who can afford a house at, like, I'm 23. Who can afford a house at 23? Unless you're Mark.
Or you said you can't afford a place to live.
So where do you... Well, I could afford a place to live if I was willing. Compared to 5 years ago, it was very easy for me. If for 5 years ago, I could go bartend, which is what I normally do, and I can afford a decent place for like $800, $700 a month. In Dallas, it's very hard to find. Like, to get a place that's not cockroach infested and like falling down, I'd have to have like 2 or 3 roommates, which is normal. But I mean, I've been here my entire life, and it's just getting. I've seen the change firsthand. We bought our house for $80,000. That neighborhood's about $400,000 now because of these multi-corporations coming out.
Like Vanguard and BlackRock.
Yeah.
We'd probably agree. Elizabeth Warren said they should be too big to fail, but I don't think any company is too big to fail. They should fail.
But I understand where you're going with this situation, and I also believe that. I believe that when a corporation gets past a certain threshold of money, they should be checked and limited by the government, because I believe it was Thomas Jefferson has a quote where he talks about if the power is directed towards the banks. I wish you can look it up later if you want. You probably won't, because I know you like to nitpick your things. Nothing against you.
No, this will be totally unedited.
But you can.
I really appreciate everything you've been saying.
There's a thing about Thomas Jefferson that talks about when the money is goes. You can look up Thomas Jefferson bank quote, I believe. And when the banks, if they're given too much money, and by banks it's capital interest, goes above the people, it's no longer a democracy. And it's true.
I certainly agree.
We really pride ourselves on being a democracy, but we're not.
I think we can find common ground there, in the sense that
I can find common ground with a lot of right-wing people, but our ideals are against each other because there are certain things.
Can you let me speak? I think we're saying the same thing on Too Big to Fail. I think that big banks want to privatize profits and socialize losses, right? And I think you're saying pick a lane, so where we won't find common ground is more so socialize the banks.
What do you mean about socialized losses? Can you expand on that?
Well, they get bailed out by the taxpayer once they screw up their own banking practices, right? They're insured. In other words, when the bank has a problem, they're insured by the federal government. And so that's the taxpayer, and that's people who really shouldn't. Even people who are middle class, people who are lower middle class,
even past that,
shouldn't bail out banks, right?
Even past that,
do we agree on that?
I do agree on that.
There you go.
But even past that, what the hell do we get as taxpayers even without that? We're one of the richest nations in the world. We don't have our free healthcare. We don't have a public transport system that's adequate. Dallas, we have a public transport system, but come on, it's bullshit.
Arlington, there is none.
Is there no public transit in Arlington?
For most of the U.S., there's compared to Europe, Europe, you don't need a car really. You can survive quite easily without one. For most of the U.S., if you don't have a car, you are struggling. You don't have a life. You don't have the ability to have a social life. It's difficult to get to work. The U.S. is quite big. We don't invest at all in. We don't invest in the social good really with any of our tax money. Our tax money is. It goes to.
I don't really know that I agree with that. I mean, you're talking many trillions of dollars spent on the war on poverty, and just talking about multi-trillion
but you're in Dallas
bills
right now, and you see the homeless people in every corner.
No, I agree. I just don't think that the federal spending on the war on poverty works. Just like the war on drugs hasn't worked.
Oh yeah.
I don't think throwing more money at it helps.
So then what are you going for?
Well, I think the problem there, right, is we would both agree that it's corruption. There's a lot of money that's being spent. It's not being spent the right way. I don't necessarily think that all those things are fundamental human rights, but I certainly would argue that the money is being spent very poorly. I mean, there's a lot of money being spent. We have a spending problem, and it's not going anywhere useful. But I wanted to get back to kind of Roe v. Wade and the subject. Let me ask you this, because there are people, for example, we had four people there, African Americans, who had a problem. How do you know
they're four just because they're African American?
I said four.
Oh, four. They said four.
Ooh, careful with your presumptions.
No, I thought I misheard you. It wasn't a presumption. It sounded 4 and 4.
There were 4 African Americans there. The number 4.
You said 4.
Okay. I didn't.
What were were you
Yeah.
asking?
Well, thanks.
is, their point of view was, okay, they were pro-choice. And then she was a mother of 4. And when I asked her about the Texas heartbeat bill, she said, well, yeah, of course, after a heartbeat, because she had done an ultrasound, she said that's a separate heart. Whose heart are you stopping? My question to you is this, because I know you're coming in hot and
I'm not coming in
you
hot. I'm
speaking.
really speaking like I'm not coming in hot. I'm not being
But
aggressive.
you understand the other
Before you
perspective where
finish-
someone says, someone does, certainly more than half the country believe at a limitation at some point, that at a certain point, it's no longer your own body. That's their argument, and that's why the Supreme Court has said it's bad law, and states should have the right to enforce those regulations.
Can I?
No, I'll let the woman
Okay.
speak.
Will the fetus survive if it's outside of your body?
So you don't have any children, right?
No, I don't.
Because a baby won't survive outside of the body.
No, it's relying on your body.
Right. A baby won't survive outside of the body, but I mean a baby delivered naturally
Yeah.
won't survive outside of the body.
I mean,
But we're talking about fetus right now,
I'm
not
talking
a
about a
baby.
fetus.
So what changes from, let's say, 8 weeks and 6 days, 8 months, 3 weeks, 6 days to 9 months? Is it just inside, outside the womb that makes it a person?
Well, one's a fetus and one's a baby.
But why is one a fetus if it's
It's not.
if it's just
it's
one
not
day shy of 9
relying.
months?
It's not relying
Well, we're
on
not-
your body to your umbilical cord, and once it's outside and cut, as
So
a
is
baby.
that what defines a person as the umbilical cord?
My opinion, yeah.
So what if a woman gives birth and they haven't cut the cord yet? Does that mean they can abort the baby at that point?
Nobody's even talking about aborting like a baby that's still in the cord. 'cause
It
that would
actually does
happen.
exist. It actually does
Okay,
exist. There was a bill.
But we have like so many billions of people. In the
But it
world,
was
you
a
can find
bill
something for
presented that,
everyone.
and I feel like I've been pretty respectful in letting you talk
Yeah.
a lot and go in different directions.
Well, you're interviewing me, so of course I would talk a lot. So yeah, and I'm also being respectful.
Well, I think interrupting is different from talking a lot. Would we agree? And you interrupted her. You interrupted me. I
Well,
just
if you want me to leave, it's okay.
Well, I would like to hear her answer.
I'm having a conversation.
Okay, so the umbilical, is that what defines personhood? I mean, the point that other people are defining person, and people define it differently.
Yeah.
I understand that. For example, these 4 African Americans said, okay, heartbeat, they agree with the Texas bill. Some people think that it's after the first trimester. But at a certain, where would you define when it's a person?
Why is it called the heartbeat bill?
Because it's when you can detect a fetal heartbeat.
Can you detect a fetal heartbeat at 6 weeks?
Yes.
Not sure about that.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so what is
You
your
didn't
argument?
used to be able to, but you can now with more advanced ultrasound. And I just had twins, so yeah, I know it for a fact.
What is your argument?
No, my question is, can you understand, in other words, those people who were horrified right at the idea of aborting a baby after a heartbeat, then there are a lot of Americans who believe that, okay, once it has its own fingers, toes, sex, there are people who believe, like I do.
I believe in the woman's choice. I believe in the right to choose.
So when does
what
that
to do.
line, I guess, when is there the line of, and this is why it's going to states?
I mean, I've talked to many people that are pro-choice about this. I believe the woman has the right to abort a child whenever they want.
So all the way up until 9 months, including birth.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
don't believe that that baby is a person at 8 months, 7, even though they could be born and viable? Because you said viability earlier. They are viable. It's viable at 21 weeks.
If it's a person, if it's still in your body, you have the choice to do what you want
So
with
is the
your
location
body.
what determines a person, in your body or outside of your body? Is that,
Well, once it's delivered, you carried. Okay, first of all, nobody really wants to abort a child at 8 months.
yeah,
They
it does. It happens all the time.
For many reasons, if they.
I've had a couple
that's
times with
still
abortions. It was never at 8 months. It was always at when they find out.
A few months,
Yeah,
yeah.
But
It's-
my
Happens
problem
tens of
also,
thousands a year. Yeah.
my problem also with this abortion bill is that it's making it so
Why
by the
do they
time
want to abort the child at
when
8
it-
months
when
old?
it's
Well, we're shifting the goalposts, right? I'm just saying it does happen, and
Yeah.
there are states that
And I
restrict
wanna
it, but
know-
there are some states that don't. My question is, would you restrict it then if you're saying
No.
Okay, so someone should be able to abort at 8 months, 9 months.
If that's what they choose.
Okay, why?
Why? Because it's their body, so it's their choice.
So
It's a person who is able to have a child,
Mm-hmm.
so it's their choice.
So if a woman is 8 months pregnant, using your premise, since we've gone to this, does that woman have 20 fingers? Does she have 20 toes? Does she have a penis if it's a boy?
What does
she
that
have 2
matter?
brains?
What does that matter?
Well, because you're ending the life, the functioning life of another human being that has all of those things. So you're saying it's her body, so that woman has 20 toes?
What does that matter?
It's not her body if she doesn't have 20 fingers and toes.
Oh, you're saying 10 fingers plus her 10 fingers. That's
Yeah.
20 fingers.
So is it still a woman's body?
It's her child. It's her body.
Well,
so
is it her
it's
child or is it her
choice.
body?
Both. It's
Well,
what is
it's
that?
one or the other. a child is not her body.
But who
Her body has
decides,
to
who
be separate
decides
from
when
her
it's a
child.
child? Probably the person that's carrying.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether you would call it a child or a fetus. I know this is what it comes down to. Is it a child or a fetus? In my opinion, when it's in your body, the medical idea of what you call it a fetus is a fetus. If you aborted me when I was a fetus, I'm not gonna fucking complain because I don't fucking know. Because I'm not fucking sentient. I'm not a person. You're a.
Well, there are plenty of
matter
people who aren't sentient. People with brain damage, babies who aren't
Yeah, I'm
sentient.
not talking about fucking, like cleansing or anything like that. I'm talking about.
You brought
like,
up sentience, and I'm just saying that's an important distinction to make. Is
I understand, yeah.
Why is it not? Because you said child or her body. There's a big difference. Is it a child? I'm trying to understand where you're coming
You're
from.
not
I
in this
understand where they
world,
came from.
I don't think you're actually trying to understand where I'm coming from.
Well, I asked you, could you understand where they're coming from? Because I was 4 people. Can you understand where they say, well, it's a separate heartbeat, so I understand some kind of
Yeah,
restriction?
but I also think maybe they just aren't fully knowledgeable on the entirety of the Texas bill that was passed for 6 weeks.
The 4 black people.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know them. I didn't talk to them
But there
about
are
it.
a lot of Americans who think there should be a limitation. You understand that your view is considered, there's extreme left, extreme right is no abortions, even in the case of rape and incest. Yours is abortion up until 9 months. That's considered a pretty radical view, and so
Yeah,
I'm
it
curious
is.
to understand where you draw. And
Maybe.
it seems to me like well, statistically, it's a radical view. Most Americans don't agree with that. Doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it would be considered very far left. What makes it acceptable? And this is a question that I am trying to understand. What makes it acceptable when it's a baby that is totally viable, because that's what you brought up first, is completely viable outside of the womb. There's no debate at this point, right?
It's still connected to her body.
So it's the umbilical cord.
Can I bring something
Yeah,
up real quick?
it's that the fetus is still relying on the nutrients of her body to survive.
Right.
So it's her choice to end that pregnancy.
So it is exclusively that a baby is relying on the nutrients of the mother, because we both know the baby is relying entirely on the mother's capabilities.
Well, once
For a year, 2 years
the baby
after.
is born and once it's not connected to that person, then
The baby's
it's-
relying on the mother's nutrients at that point, right? Mother's
no,
milk.
not necessarily. No.
Because of modern technology, but for a long
Yeah.
time they had to be breastfed. They're still reliant upon the mother's nutrients.
Can I bring something up real quick?
Well, not the mother
I know you
that
wanna
you
talk
don't
to me.
necessarily have to be the mother that birthed the child to keep the child alive.
Right, but it's reliant upon the nutrients of another woman. You said it's
So
reliant upon the actual nutrients of another
what's
body.
difference between the now child breastfeeding versus the child who is relying on the nutrients inside the body is
That's
what
my
you're
question.
saying. Yeah. Well, it's the person that had the child inside their body is. Where am I going?
We've been drinking, but can I bring something up? You brought up the war on drugs earlier and how it was ineffective because we poured all this money into it and we really heavily criminalized like drugs and to like an extreme extent, and it never worked. It's actually made the problem worse. If you read any white papers, like any research paper on abortion and like limiting abortions, no matter what your ideal of like how conception or when it becomes a baby, abortions, like throughout anywhere that abortions have been criminalized, they still happen. But when you criminalize them, then you have the problems that we're facing right now in the drug world. It's fentanyl, and I've lost 3 friends in 2 years from fentanyl. But in abortions, it's going to be illegal abortions because people are still going to be desperate and still going to have them, and people are still going to die and be like harmed.
Now I'm 21.
There won't be illegal.
Right now
What
I'm
do you mean there won't be
21. I
illegal?
can't
That's
afford to
what
have a
they're
child, but if I were pregnant, I couldn't afford to have a child. I would get an abortion, a safe, legal abortion. It would allow me to have a child in the future because I didn't have to harm my own body to abort this child.
Right.
So if a safe, easy abortion, legal, would ensure that I was able to have a child in the future. So
Okay.
why I don't
understand the question. Are you asking me a question?
No, I'm just making a point.
Okay, because I was still waiting. I was just waiting for the answer on the question regarding the breastfeeding and umbilical cord. And I understand you were talking about fentanyl.
So
Could have abortions. We'll have more
if you're
fentanyl.
taking away safe legal abortions, then if someone has no choice and can't afford a child and
Well,
still
let's be honest about this. It's just I think they have a lot of choices.
you didn't let me finish. So if it was not not legal to have an abortion and a person is still able to go out and have what we call a back alley abortion, could ruin their body for the rest of their life. They're not going to be able to have a child in the future because it fucked up their uterus. So a safe legal abortion would ensure that that child or that person could have a child in the future.
Not necessarily.
Why?
The correlation equaling causation that a safe legal abortion, and there's of course the arguments we made that it's never safe for the baby involved, but there are other choices. It wouldn't ensure anything because what does ensure it is contraception, abstinence, motherhood, adoption.
Why is it
Abstinence
not?
doesn't work. Everybody knows that. I think
Okay, I gave you 3 other options.
And
abstinence
also,
doesn't
can I tell you, adoption.
I don't know about you, but there's never been a single baby from people who haven't been having sex.
Yeah, but we're all human and everybody has sex. And you try to teach kids about abstinence like they taught us in Texas, and it doesn't work. And a lot of people get pregnant when they're young because they don't know anything about contraception.
They get pregnant if they're not practicing abstinence. Yes, I agree with you.
But who practices abstinence? Are you going to be a monk? Do you practice abstinence?
I've written about it extensively, yeah.
Yeah,
before I was
you
married.
practice it?
Yeah, before I was married, yeah. A lot of people do.
To each their own. But
Well, you just made an argument that said to each their own. Yeah. I said 3
Really?
options. There's abstinence,
Most
contraception.
people don't
A
do
teenager
abstinence.
in high
contraception.
school, if you tell them to never have sex, well, of course they're going to have sex.
And a lot of
Well, I
people
think you
don't
say
have
abstinence,
And
contraception.
you never teach the person or the child in high school how to have safe sex.
Right.
That's the whole point of
I'm not
abstinence, right?
advocating for that. I think I was
I don't
pretty
really
clear
give
because
a
I brought up the other choices
We're
that
about to
outside
go
of
somewhere,
abortion,
but
right?
where else
I don't really give a shit. Yeah. I don't know what your point is.
Well, you said
Can we wrap it
that
up?
choice of
Like-
safe, legal, and rare
No,
abortion.
we're just spiraling out of control
Well, you
here.
said the choice of safe, legal, and rare abortion would ensure, and I was saying there
Can we
are other
bring it
options
back
that
and wrap
ensure
it up real quick? 'Cause we have to
abstinence,
go.
contraception.
So
No, hold on a second. Let me finish. Abstinence, contraception, motherhood, adoption. Abortion's not required to ensure it. You understand? Because you use the word
I'm
required.
sure I'm
people
sure
that
you're
were in-
aware that there are states that are making contraceptives illegal.
No, I'm not.
You're not aware of that?
No.
There are
been multiple
there are
talks
no
in-
states right now that make contraception illegal.
Yeah, but
Well, you know
Mrs.
they're
you're aware of that.
trying to, right?
Okay, so now we've changed the goalposts.
No, this
No,
is
that's
what we're talking about.
that's literally what I just
Mississippi
said.
right
There are
now
states that are
talking
trying
of-
to make
Mississippi right now is
contraceptives
talked about how they're making contraceptives legal is not off the board, which is a pretty intense thing to say.
The state legislature, Mississippi, has not said that.
illegal. What about
Believe it.
Louisiana and
What about
IUD?
Not the IUD, you're talking about
gotta
great
go. So can we bring it back and wrap it up on whatever?
Yeah, no, I thought we just did bring it back. You brought it back to the war on drugs, that you were studying human rights abroad and can't afford a house, and that's a human right on the internet. And I think we've gone in a lot of different directions. Where I wanted to just have a conversation about Roe v. Wade,
Yeah.
and I appreciate you going these
You
different
smoke
directions.
nicotine? You can smoke if you want.
It's okay, I don't need anything. I appreciate it though. Thanks for offering. But I think I understand where you guys line up on Roe v. Wade, and I think that there's a divide in this country, and
There is a
states are going to be able to
It's
establish
sad,
their own
but-
laws.
My point is I mean, you're not able to carry a child
Mm-hmm.
because I'm assuming that you are a man without a uterus.
Why?
And okay,
Because
well,
you're
fuck.
Steven Crowder, you're
Because you're
on
fucking
Steven
Steven
Crowder's
Crowder, and I know you have a penis.
You know I have a penis.
Oh well, I don't. Never mind. It doesn't really.
You can show us real quick if you want to prove it.
No, that's a felony.
We're okay with it. We're consenting.
It doesn't matter. The other people here aren't
I'll show
consenting.
you mine if you consent.
That's the last thing I want to see.
It's pretty big.
He never
good
goes
for you.
to the doctor, so maybe.
Yeah, maybe it's because he lays it on the microwave. So
No, maybe because he
I'm a
can't
man. I'll go with it.
I
I'm a
like
man.
that.
I'm a man. And let me guess. You're not saying because I'm a man I shouldn't have an opinion on abortion, right?
Well,
Do you have an opinion on murder, theft, arson? Come on. It's a silly argument. But
You can have an
I
opinion.
appreciate
We're all
it.
entitled to our opinion.
Yeah,
but-
thank you, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. You guys have a good day. Be safe.
You too.
Well, there you have it. We managed to speak to the view of the majority of Americans on, abortion with some limitations, the radical 30% who don't believe in any at all. And this guy asked us for $5. And then he went and bought weed. So, I guess subscribe. What does weed go for? All right, I'm going to level with you. If you liked this video, you have to hit the share button. Otherwise, your entire family will die. I don't write the rules. I just call them. And this is clipped from the live show every Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. That's the best thing you can do to watch live. I mean, you ran afoul. Your family's dead.
My family is dead, but my mother left me with this shirt before she went home to meet the Lord.
Oh, well, I guess we all come out winners.
Your dry eyes deserve better. New preservative-free Ivisia Dry Eye Drops. Made with hydrating polymers that form a protective matrix over your eyes, moisturizing hyaluronic acid, and revitalizing trehalose. Scientifically formulated to reduce dryness, discomfort, and strain. Ivisia. We see a better way. From the makers of the #1 doctor-prescribed dry eye brand in Europe.
Engage this weapon! More guys on the rooftop. They're fighting everywhere. Need help, my feet. We're authorized to kill any underground we see. They're in Tails Bodega. I'm close, but I need to take care of all the fun in the underground before the streets are safe. Get to our apartment building. Things are burned down. Getting lost in the blizzard. Need to head toward the gunfire. Targeting the underground. Where's Roofs are clear, but not the streets. Yankee, where are you? Can you guys make a break for it? Who's that? Someone there! Guys! Listen, hey, we need to get out of here. I can only carry some of you. She started already.
Spider-Man sighted. Get out of here, young blood! You've got more important things to do.
He's right. Go. We'll get people clear.
I'll be back.
I know. Okay, people! Check every door! We don't leave anyone behind!
No! You don't know what you're doing!
They deserve what's coming to them!
No! The reactor! Krieger changed the specs. You're not just gonna destroy Roxxon Plaza. You're gonna vaporize all of Harlem.
I'm not gonna let you lie to me again! You're too late.
I can't let you do this.
I can't let you stop me.
Don't you see what the reactor's doing?
Destroying the plaza! Tearing down Krieger's monument!
If the plaza melts down, it'll take Harlem with it!
Krieger! I ran the numbers!
Why won't you listen to me?
Krieger couldn't change the reactor! He's not that smart!
He's smart enough. Let me stop this. The Finn I knew cared